Hi, and welcome back to the Mom and Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kat, and on this episode, I am speaking with McCall Gordon. She is sharing with us some really interesting insights on sleep and temperament. And I think this is such a good and needed perspective on why some babies might have a harder time sleeping. We often feel like we are wrong, we're doing it wrong, we can't get our baby to sleep, what's wrong with us? What's going on with my baby? But she brings some insight into why, for some babies, it is harder for them to settle to sleep. And she calls this type of temperament as related to sleep a live wire. And she's going to tell us more about what that means. McCall is a researcher, speaker, and author specializing in the link between temperament and sleep and on the research foundations of sleep training advice. She has a master's degree in applied psychology from Antioch University and a BS in human biology from Stanford. She is a certified gentle sleep coach and has worked with thousands of parents of alert, sensitive, intense children. And as she says, she comes to this work because she had two of these and she didn't sleep for 18 years. So let's dive in and talk with McCall. Welcome, McCall. Thank you so much for being here.
So happy to be here.
I'm really excited to dive in a lot of things and a lot of very important things that are going to be very helpful to a lot of parents out there. So if I first want to start off with what I think is super fascinating, how the things that you've learned over the years and seen and researched. We're going to be talking a little bit about what a live wire is and why it's important to know that. But you also say and know that temperament in children starts very, very early.
Yeah. Temperament's kind of a lot basically hardwired. There's some great work about the genetic components. So some of this is even noticeable in utero. Dr. Thomas Boyce is a pediatrician in San Francisco and wrote a great book called The Orchid and the Dandelion. And he
Mm,
found some interesting things actually about babies before they're even born in terms of reactivity. So some babies
interesting.
react more strongly to loud noises and different stimuli before they're even born. And I think moms would probably say that.
Hmm.
They have stories of their babies and how different they are before they're even born.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is just hardwired that babies from birth can be more sensitive or more alert or more
Hmm.
reactive to
Hmm.
things. So it takes less to produce a response. So a lot of these things really start out quite early. And if you ask parents, they will tell you. Now, usually it can be first time parents, often it's second time parents.
Hmm.
But first time parents will suspect they'll be, I was that way absolutely with my firstborn child. That was like, is that normal?
Yeah.
That doesn't
Right.
seem like what I expected a newborn baby to do, to
Uh-huh.
be this alert,
Right.
this non-sleeping. I
Mm.
expected a newborn to sleep all the time, and
Right.
my first absolutely did not.
Oh,
It
interesting.
was not at all like what I expected. So temperament is something that we are wired, different capacities that we're wired with pretty much from birth or before, actually.
Yeah, and that's really fascinating. Yeah, you don't really know all of what you're going to get until your kid comes out. And as a parent, you're watching them develop and seeing who they are over time and getting to know them. And for parents that are dealing with a perinatal mental health condition, that makes it sometimes harder to connect. Or even if you're not dealing with a perinatal mental health condition, if your kid comes out and they are colicky or they don't sleep or they cry a lot, that also impacts bonding and attachment sometimes and connection. But like parents don't know what to do. I've had clients in my practice say, my kid doesn't sleep. Or when they do sleep, it's for 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And so that parent is also not sleeping and not getting the support that they need. So it's all, of course, it's interconnected. The parent and child is.
Yeah. Some of that's bound up in expectations,
Mm,
right? Some of it is just, yes, they're not sleeping. I've now talked to thousands of parents across this a telehealth platform that I work on, and so much of it is what we expect the experience of having a newborn to
mm,
be. So some of it is our expectations are way off. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have a baby who's more alert than we expect them to even to be. And so parents are expecting a newborn to sleep all the time, and you have a more alert kid who
Right.
just isn't. And then you think, oh, it's my fault that they're not sleeping all the
Oh,
time.
I
You
hear that a
load that
lot.
burden on
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of times, it's literally for me when I work with them, it's just a matter of offloading that burden to say,
Mm,
no, your 4 week old baby doesn't even know day from night yet. This is
right.
what they're supposed to be doing. You haven't done anything wrong. Suddenly, it's a whole new world for those parents.
Right.
They're not worried anymore. And suddenly, that baby's sleep is normalized and they're okay. It's a really highly complex situation. Now, some people, their baby really isn't sleeping, but there's almost always a reason,
Mm,
right? It's about getting down to the why isn't that baby sleeping? And some babies are really sensitive. Some babies are more easily bothered by tummy distress or by
mm-hmm.
feeding issues or
Mm-hmm.
by light and sound and
Mm-hmm.
temperature changes. That's where temperament really comes into play. Some babies can sleep anywhere, anytime. Some babies
For sure.
from birth, you can lay them down and they will fall asleep.
Yeah.
And some babies have never done that in their entire life. Here's where parent sort of guilt and bad feelings comes into play is because every parent with a sensitive baby has a friend who says, "Oh, my baby's 8 weeks old and sleeping through the night.
Mm.
Use the sleep method that you should try."
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then that parent with the wakeful baby thinks, "Oh, my baby's wakeful because I just stink at being a
Mm-hmm.
parent."
And
Not
then
because
they go and try that sleeping technique and it doesn't work for their kid and then they feel bad about
they feel
themselves.
even worse.
Yeah.
They feel even worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we really need to be telling parents, look, there are different brands of babies.
I love
There are
that.
different brands of
Yes.
babies. You don't have that brand. You don't have that kind of car. You have a
Right.
different car. In the
Oh,
book, I say it's like trying to use a manual for a PC when you have a Mac. It's not going to
right.
work. It's
Right.
you have a different operating system.
Yeah.
You have to know that, and therefore it's pointless because that other person could have stood on their head and
Hmm.
that child would have slept. It had
Right.
nothing to do with what they did or didn't do.
This is so incredibly important. You're so right. It's the expectations. It's all these myths that we have, not only about parenthood and motherhood, but how our babies are supposed to be. So
Right.
you must hear them all the time. You said already, baby's gonna sleep as a newborn. What are the other things that?
Oh gosh, we have a whole zeitgeist around the trainability of newborns. A whole
Right.
thing about you can train a baby to do whatever you want it to do schedule wise. I have lots of parents who are like, my 12-week-old sleeps and wakes up at 5. We'd really like him to wake up at 6.
Good
Okay.
luck.
Yeah, let me grab that magic wand. Let me just grab that. You can't train it's
Yeah.
we wouldn't even train a puppy that way. Like
Mm,
we can't train a baby to do whatever we want. And yet a lot of the information that's out there leads parents to believe they can if
right.
you just A, B, and C. Babies aren't that way, and certainly not more sensitive babies.
For
Really,
sure.
you
For
know,
sure.
you really just can't get away with that. The whole idea that if you just lay a baby down, they'll somehow learn how to fall asleep. Now, some babies you can do that. There are
Hmm.
these really mellow babies that
Hmm.
you can get
Right.
away with that. But
Right.
that's a very small subset of babies in general.
Yeah, so this is a kind of education and information that is, I think, crucial for parents, and a lot of parents don't have. I certainly didn't have when my babies came. I got a book that said you will be able to read all of your baby's cues and know
Oh,
exactly, learn your baby's language and all this stuff. I looked through it and I was like, I don't know what my baby's saying to me. What? And immediately felt, okay, I'm behind or I'm not getting something or I'm feeling, let alone having a kid that sure, yeah, I could get them to sleep by holding them, but it didn't matter how long I held them. As soon as I tried to, however gently, however long I took to try and set them down, boop,
yeah,
wake
forget
up.
it. Yeah. Number one, that's really normal
Mm,
for most babies. See, that's the
right.
other thing. That's normal for most babies. Again, for these sensitive babies, they're really sensitive to that feeling of being lowered. Most newborns, that feeling
Mm-hmm.
makes them feel like they're falling. Some babies are going to be really
Yeah.
sensitive to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is almost all the books makes parents feel bad for nursing or rocking their tiny baby to sleep. It's
I
bananas.
hear this all the time. And
Bananas.
then moms who are nursing getting pressure from parents or partners saying you're spoiling them or you're doing too much or they shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't be doing
Oh,
that.
don't
So
get me
this
started.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
tell me that's okay to do.
Right. This kind of folds over into the whole bananas nature of the sleep training rhetoric we have right now about very young babies. That the only way to get them to sleep is to prevent these problems from happening, when in reality, the research on that is terrible. The actual research on preventing sleep problems shows virtually no benefit that sticks. So we're telling parents, we're putting all this pressure on them
Mm-hmm.
to do stuff at an age that did not show any real measurable impact.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually pressuring people,
Yeah,
saying that they can prevent later problems that really has not shown to be true.
good.
For two, regulation is learned in relationship, and feeding a baby to sleep and rocking a baby to sleep biologically makes sense for a developing nervous system, and
Mm-hmm.
especially for babies who, again, are more sensitive, more reactive, have a lot more going on from a nervous system perspective. Motion and things like that, body contact is going to help them regulate. We have
Mm-hmm.
to remember human babies are born 3 months too early. As a species, we decided to walk upright, and babies had to be born early to get out. So, in the first 3 months, we are their external regulators, and being
Yeah.
near a human body helps their nervous system become primed and tuned.
Mm-hmm.
All of that helps them. There was some theorist, and I wish I could remember who, said we give them a guided tour of regulation. And I love that. It's
Oh.
like we're saying, hey, here's what it feels like to go from awake to asleep. Here's what it feels like to go from hungry to full. Here's what it feels like to go from upset to calm. I'm going to show you
Mm-hmm.
so that once those capacities, once those systems are more established after 3, 4, 5 months, then we can say, okay, now you're ready to do it. It's like training wheels on a bike. Give a
Mm-hmm.
kid training wheels until they have the capacity for a
Right,
two-wheeler. We
for
take
sure.
off the training wheels and we go, okay, now I'm going to help you, but I'm going to hold on to the bike
Right.
first till you get the feel for it. Then I'm going to start letting go. It's a process.
For
But we're
so,
so
so
in just like dumping them to go, no, I'm not going to do anything
right.
because if I do, you will never learn, which is weird.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm that is really an important thing. So I hear a lot about the baby has to learn how to self-soothe in the early months. So what do you say to that?
Okay. Oh, I love this discussion because I feel so passionately about it. Self-soothing means that we can do something for ourselves to help ourselves feel better. You and I, as adults, have a huge list of things we can do. We can
Mm-hmm.
go for a walk. We can
Mm-hmm.
call a friend. We can go have a snack. We can read a book. We can do a lot of things. We can think about the problem. The younger the individual, the fewer things they have. So if we think about a 2 month old baby who is swaddled, they can't even get their hand to their mouth to suck on it. What are they? We've conflated falling asleep with self-soothing. Self-soothing
Interesting.
is not falling asleep.
Yeah.
Self-soothing is calming so that they can fall asleep. Self-soothing does not equal falling asleep.
Mm,
So if a baby is swaddled and they're screaming and they fall asleep, that is not self-soothing. That
mm,
is just withdrawing from screaming.
mm. Like they got
So
tired
they
of
just got
that.
tired. Yes, they just gave up,
Mm,
essentially.
mm,
If a baby's in a seat or something and they're fussing and they put their hand in their mouth and they suck on it and they stop crying, okay, that might be some rudimentary self-soothing because they were just fussing. That distress was tolerable. They could
mm-hmm.
manage. But if a kid is really crying and they don't have any resources at all, that's not self-soothing.
Mm.
Self-soothing only happens when the distress is tolerable enough for them to manage. We don't give a 6-month-old baby a chicken leg to eat. We give them purees because that's all they can manage.
All right.
Same thing.
That's a
So this
really,
notion of
really,
self-soothing has gotten completely stretched out of all proportion,
yeah.
um,
I
in,
mean,
in
when,
terms of what it means.
like, even the idea of self-soothing, like you're saying, maybe there's some spontaneous self-soothing if they can put their hand in their mouth, but they aren't learning how to do that without the regulation support from the parent.
Anything that goes above what they can manage with the tools that they have at their disposal,
Mm,
they need help with. They need help with. So
mhm.
again, the younger the baby, the less distress they can manage without help. And at tiny ages, the distress they can manage is teeny weeny, teeny tiny. The older they get, the more
Yeah,
they can do. A
right,
1 year
of
old
course.
or an 18-month-old, there's lots they can do.
Right.
They can rub their hair, they can suck their thumb, they can turn away, they can even maybe think about it. They know where their parent is.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots they can
Right.
do. They can manage more on their own. But a 2-month-old, a 3-month-old, a
Mm-mm.
4-month-old,
No.
yeah,
So this is true, what you're describing. This is true of all babies. What happens then if there's, like you said, a more alert, a more sensitive, a child with more
yeah,
intensity?
yeah.
What
It does.
happens there?
Yeah, that's a good question because for them it's even harder. There's some evidence that for them it's even more of a struggle self-soothe because they tend to react more strongly, more quickly. So a mellow kid may react that on a slower slope and I didn't have one of these kids, so I don't know, but I've heard that they go, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And the parents will say, oh, they're grumbling, they're fussing, and then
Uh-huh.
they go back down. Okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
And then there are kids who act like their head's going to spin around.
Yep.
Like they go, the parent, this is what parents will say, 0 to 100.
Uh-huh. Yep.
My kid
Yep.
goes 0 to 100 if I don't get to them fast.
Yeah.
Parents will say that verbatim is what
Mm-hmm.
I hear. And so these kids react strongly and they react fast.
Mm.
So we don't exactly know physiologically what happens, but these kids really need help quite quickly. And if you leave them in that state, it may not be great. They
Right.
don't calm down from that. And then you're just leaving them there. So we really don't know the outcome of that physiologically for those kids. But there is a dip, they call it, there's a big researchy term, differential susceptibility. And that just
Mm.
means the same action
Yeah.
can have different outcomes depending on the temperament of the child.
Sure. And I've heard that term used in the context of highly sensitive people and highly
Yeah.
sensitive babies.
Yeah.
So this is a trait. This is, like you're saying, part of their temperament. This is part of how
Mhm.
they're born. And when parents don't have this kind of information to understand this, the parent blames himself,
Yeah.
gets like mad at baby. Like, why? I've talked to parents who are like at their wits' end. And the most amazing title of your book, like, why won't you sleep? That is a thought and a feeling that runs through so many parents' heads and out of their mouths,
Of course.
because they're at the parent is at their wits' end now, too.
Part of it too is the promises made in the books, and because I literally just read through the top best-selling sleep books on Amazon, and a lot of those books are talking about, people don't know this, they're talking about those mellow kids because the
Yeah.
promises they make are this will only take 3 or 4 nights. This will only take 3 or 4
Yeah.
nights.
Yeah. I remember
It'll
reading one
be,
of those books.
yeah,
It was
it'll be
not three or
really,
four
it's
nights.
not very far. The first night will be the worst. It could be 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 45 minutes for these kids. And so then when it's 2 hours the first night, the parent's like, what is the parent won't say, hey,
Hmm.
maybe this isn't right for my child.
Hmm.
The parent is, what am I doing wrong? And in fact, one of the books says perfect timing produces no crying.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That's
so
impossible.
yeah, it's impossible. And so when there is crying, what does that say? Oh, I'm doing it wrong. I'm
Yeah.
not doing perfect time. So
Right,
there's
right,
all
right.
kinds of things, booby traps in
Mm-hmm.
there that
Mm-hmm.
says, hey, parent, if this is harder than the book is saying, you're doing it wrong.
Mm.
And so that's the other thing that feeds into the whole parent blame piece of this and the frustration, which is, I want sleep and this isn't working. I must stink at this. And
Right.
it's like there's no out for parents. It all
And we're
sounds
not
so,
talking too about a parent who is well rested at this
yeah,
point
yeah,
either.
right,
Like that parent is probably also not had enough sleep because they're
right,
like trying to figure this out in the middle of the
right,
night, sometimes by themselves. Nobody's sleeping.
right.
So the risk, I would say, to their mental health,
It's
both
terrible.
like having themselves being sleep deprived and feeling to blame for all of these things that they're doing wrong for their kid, it's just a recipe to feel
Right.
horrible.
And then if we are talking about a littler baby under 6 months, because all these books are saying to do some of this stuff to 8 week, 10 week, 12-week-old babies. Then a parent says, okay, forget it. I'm just going to feed this baby to sleep. Then they're actually doing what is appropriate and fine to do, and they're feeling guilty about it.
Oh my gosh, you can't win in this scenario.
You cannot win. You cannot win.
Mm.
And so a lot of it's just all this stuff breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So when I get parents on this telehealth platform and I tell them your baby's going through, for example, the 4 month regression, there's no point in trying to sleep train. Just feed that baby and get him back to sleep. They go,
Right.
oh, but I'm worried that if I do, it'll set a bad habit. Nope, nope, you're not setting a bad habit. We'll deal with it in 6 months. At six
Right.
months,
Yes.
you're totally fine. You have a free pass till six
Yeah.
months. I just watch the worry and the guilt just like floating off their
Mm-hmm.
shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
and they look happier. They look happier because
Right.
of all this worry and all of this stress they've been carrying. They just go, oh, that would be so much easier. Yeah, exactly. We'll
Right.
deal with it. Month
There's
and a half.
there's just no way to set up a perfect scenario for like from the beginning that works all the way through. For one,
Right,
babies develop and they change and their needs change.
right,
And it's any parent who's had a kid knows that like you get used to one thing, you feel like you're maybe finally figured it out, and then they change, and then you got to figure the next
right.
thing out.
That's the other piece is a lot of this advice makes it sound like one and done. And so parents do stuff, and I'm like, yeah, you can sleep train it. Don't sleep train it 8 weeks, but you can because these books don't say what to do about the 4 month regression.
Mm,
So sure, sleep trained at 8 weeks, but you're going to have to do it again after the regression. And you
right,
probably could have saved your time because a lot of babies are sleeping great at 2 and 3 months. They
right.
don't tell you what to do when the regression comes. And later on, when they start to crawl, and then later, like it's the whole thing. This
Mm,
is my soapbox issue right now is we
yeah,
need to completely pull apart the whole sleep training thing because it has gotten out of hand. It really has gotten bananas, I think, and it's
sure.
creating so much
Yeah.
stress, and especially for parents of intense, sensitive babies because no one's talking to them, and they're like losing their minds because they're trying to fit into this other box and they
Hmm.
just don't. So again, that's why I wrote the book because no, don't even
Hmm.
go there. You cannot fit in that box. That box is not for you. You need a whole different paradigm because you have this different child and you need to validate that, or you need somebody to validate that
Right.
you are on a different path. And it's a harder path for sure. It's harder. You probably, you said you experienced
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, I had two very different births and two very different kids, and my kids are very similar to how their births were. My daughter's was like a slow to warm kid. That was a very
your
long
first.
labor.
Who's your
My
first?
first
Uh-huh.
was like yeah, long labor. And second came out like lightning. And they're like even when they were little, like my daughter would get like scared if somebody came to the door, so she'd go in our room and hide behind the pillows. My son, on the other hand, if somebody walks in the door, he's hey, hi, like,
Or
how's it going?
extrovert, introvert. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
and
interesting.
their sleep was similar. Like my daughter slept; it was much easier for her to sleep, and and all that for with my son. By the time he was 6 months, I was had so lost my own mind from sleep deprivation that I was like, okay, I need somebody else to tell me how to help this kid sleep so that I can sleep.
Yeah.
But that was at 6 months.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so interesting. Both scenarios are hard if the Spirit Alert Livewire is first or
Hmm.
second.
Right.
I've had people with twins
They,
where one is
uh,
one way and the other is the
hmm.
other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then those folks know it's not them
Hmm.
because they're twins.
That's true.
Okay.
That is a benefit.
At least they know it's not them. But it's a shock either way. If it's your first kid, I think it's harder because you don't have a frame of reference.
Right.
But if it's your second, that's also tricky because you're like, I just wasn't expecting this. And what happened?
Right. And what worked for my first did not work for my second
Not work
at
at all.
all.
Yeah.
I had to get help.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. It is definitely harder. There's lots of ways it's harder. It doesn't usually with a kid, especially the extroverted ones. So I call them outies and innies, but it's extroverts and introverts. The ones that are quiet or slow to warm up, cautious,
Mm.
they are still intense. They just tend to turn it inward. They're
Sure.
still very
Yeah.
intense. But the ones who are outies, extroverted, they call it surgent. I love that.
Mm. Mm.
Surgent. They
That's
run
a good
toward
word.
things. Yeah, isn't that nice?
Yes.
I like it. They run toward things. But the ones that are chatty and on and going, they just take it out of you all day, all night. You like there's no break, right? At all. And so parents are just exhausted.
Oh, if I could talk for just a moment too about, I talked with a specialist with highly sensitive parents and talking
Oh,
about when a parent or a child is highly sensitive and the other one is not, the temperament mismatch and how hard and challenging that can be. So, like, you could have a highly sensitive kid or a kid who's more alert. And if you are like, maybe I can put it in terms of you have an extroverted kid and you're an introvert, how there's that too. Like, where
yeah.
you're trying to think about how all of these pieces fit together. It's not cookie cutter.
Oh my God. And then you also have you're fostering qualities in your kid that you did not get fostered in
Oh my
yourself.
gosh.
Oh my
Yep.
Lord.
Yeah.
I often
Yeah.
say, I had no idea I was an intense person till I had children.
Okay.
I remember the day I was like, why are my kids so intense? And I was like, oh my
Oh,
God, I think I'm intense. I had
maybe
no
me too.
idea. I had all of these, I had a lot of dis feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
how was I able to be there when my kids were dysregulated? Their dysregulation triggered my
Oh yeah.
dysregulation
Yeah.
because I had no idea.
Yeah.
In my family of origin, we just didn't.
Oh,
We just
right.
didn't. We just didn't. So
Yeah.
that's how I regulated. You just didn't. But with children, you can't just not, right? That stuff gets triggered.
Yeah.
I also didn't realize how sensory sensitive I was. So auditory
Yep.
bombardment, let's
Yeah.
call it, or sensory bombardment, or
Yep.
what, all my stuff just was
Yep.
getting triggered all the time.
Man. Same.
You learn, yeah. So you learn and grow by
Uh-huh.
getting triggered by your children and being open to that. Yes, it's a journey of growth. It's also no fun.
Yeah, it's stressful. And I think going into it blindly in the sense of not knowing and not understanding how my own sensitivity would be impacted, or even to be aware of my own sensitivity when having a child and how it might play out different with
Mm,
my each kid in different ways. This feels like so crucial for parents, and especially like newly parents who have a new baby, to
mhm.
know both about themselves and about their child. So even if they don't do anything with it, just
Yeah.
knowing that, okay, a little bit more about themselves, a little bit more about their kid, just like you said, sheds the guilt, sheds the
Yeah.
shame. All of
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff is so protective of mental health.
Yeah, the book has a workbook that you can download. And so there's a temperament quiz for your child, but I always make the parent take it too, because I'm like,
Perfect.
it's really important because
Yeah,
it
right.
didn't get it from
Genetics.
nowhere. Genetics are a thing, and it's really true. We don't really think about our own temperament very often, and it's
Hmm.
important to understand it. and to know. And then the other piece that I'm really proud of in the book is that there's several chapters on the parent and on the journey of parenting a kid like this, because it
Hmm.
is no joke. And if we don't shore up the parents
Right.
of these kids, we don't patch you up and give you sort of a little first aid kit and a
Hmm.
little survival bag for this journey, that's just an important piece of this, to also see that this is a lifelong journey. This is not just, okay, you're just going to get sleep fixed and then you're good to go.
Right.
This is a long, so in there we talk about like kids grown up, like
Mm.
live wires grown up. And I talk a little bit about my kids. I had somebody else who's got a grown live wire. And we say, how do they turn out? Because sometimes you can't see
Oh, sure,
the
sure.
next year. It's a journey if you let it be. I've learned.
Right.
I don't know, maybe you don't have the choice. Maybe it's a journey whether you want it to be or not. I'm not
Right.
sure.
So yeah, you do share about yourself in the book, but this idea of live wires, how did you come to that as a way to
Yeah,
understand
it
this?
really was because there's so many different terms. So it's
Mm.
not like a specific thing that's brand new. It's just like there's spirited, there's highly sensitive, there's alert. There's just a lot of different words. And
Yeah,
I just used it because it's a noun. And
right.
also that it just seemed to me, these kids just seem like they have more current running through their system
Yeah.
and not quite as much covering on that wiring. So
Mm-hmm.
they tend to blow fuses a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
easily. So I just used it just as a matter of convenience to be able to refer as an umbrella term
Yeah,
for all of those things. But we're all saying the same stuff. Spirited
right.
is the same thing. High needs, all those
Mm-hmm.
terms. We're all talking about the same. If you have one, you know what we're talking about.
For sure.
Yeah.
So in the book, you go through what this is, how people can understand it, and you talk about sleep. Obviously, that's why Won't You Sleep is, again, the best title. Because immediately, like, I have said that. And I know a lot of parents are like, oh, in the middle of the night, so
Can you hear this?
frustrated. What about for moms and parents who are struggling right now,
Yeah.
who are feeling at their wits' end? What do you say to them?
So the main takeaways or the main 911
Mm,
things to do. If you are currently, I guess the one is usually whatever you're doing that you don't want to be doing anymore. Lying with your kid, rocking them all the way to sleep, whatever it is. You got to start moving or shifting. The leaving the room, the Ferber stuff doesn't work,
mm,
but you can start reducing whatever it is you're doing in a gradual, methodical way. So the
mm,
approach that I use is the sleep lady approach. We tweak it a little bit, but basically, if you're lying with your kid, you can at least start sitting up in the bed. Then eventually you can sit next to the bed. Then eventually maybe you can start creeping away and you stay there till they're asleep. We're not going to leave the room, but you can, if you're bouncing on a ball till they're out, start bouncing more slowly, a little bit, and just start tapering it off over time. That's how
mm,
you start the process. Whatever you can do. I always say pick your battles, but fight the ones you pick. It's not going to solve it all. The other one is that generally these kids are overtired. People go, oh, they're low sleep needs. I really wonder about that. I just
mm,
sometimes think they just act like it.
mm.
Usually these kids need more sleep than they indicate.
Oh my gosh, my son, the more tired he was, the more alert he was,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
more he ramped up.
yeah.
And people would say, "Oh, he's got all this energy." I'm like, "No,
Uh,
we've gone past the
yeah.
point."
They have really powerful second winds. My daughter,
Yes.
I remember her being, I want to say 10 months old. I don't really remember. She might have been older. I don't remember. But I would always wait for her sleepy signals. That's another thing. It just doesn't work. Oh,
Right.
watch their sleepy signals. These kids do not have them. Or if they do, they're like
Yeah.
a nanosecond when you look the other way. I don't
Mm,
know. I don't
mm,
think they get the message from their body that they're tired. I really
mm.
don't.
Interesting.
They're either too busy or the
Mhm.
signal's just not that strong. And then
Oh, that
I
so
know,
resonates. Yeah.
I know. And
Yeah.
then I think they're into their second wind. So
Yeah.
I think you need to know that they're tired and you need to just try for a nap or for
Hmm.
bedtime. Give them a good routine, a good lead up, and then try earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
Uh, Almost all these kids have a bedtime that's too late because people are like, oh no, they're just
They don't
never
seem
up.
tired.
They don't
Right.
seem tired. So my
Yes.
daughter, I remember watching David Letterman come on and go off, and he came on after Johnny Carson back
Right.
in the day. So it
Right.
would be like 12:30, and
Yeah.
she was like
Yep.
going
Let's do
strong.
this.
She wasn't fussy, she wasn't cranky, she was like putting on play and whatever she was doing. And I, again, is this normal? This isn't normal. I don't, it was crazy. Know what time they should be in bed and just give it a try. That's
Right.
all I'll say. Those are the, then there's other stuff,
For sure. There's so
but
much to,
there's so
yeah.
much. With 3-year-olds, I could do a whole session on 3-year-olds.
Mhm.
With that one, all I'll say is make a chart, lock down the choices, and stick to it like glue, is
Right.
all I will say.
3 is tough.
Three is
3 is tough for
How
sure.
old are yours?
Now 15 and 12.
Fair. You're
Yeah,
good.
yeah, I'm out of those woods. We're in different woods now, but
Different ones. But the woods changed.
the woods have
The woods
changed.
the woods have changed.
But yeah, those years are hard. And I think like all parents are just trying to figure out how to do this. They're trying to figure out what's best for the kid and unfortunately also get wrapped up in that you can go to a bookstore and see 5 million different books on what to do.
Yeah.
And it's challenging to figure it out, let alone if your kid has more of these live wire type of
Yeah.
traits. So I really appreciate that you are talking about this and bringing it to people's attention and awareness because I just think that's a subset of parents that have been overlooked or not even looked into.
Yeah, and you have to know that there's, I think the other important piece is that in this, there are the traits are challenging, but almost all of them have these really positive sides to them.
Oh,
These kids
no
are
doubt.
bright.
Yes.
And being bright means your job is harder,
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if we know that they're bright and sensitive and persistent and perceptive, that's all really good stuff.
Mhm.
Makes our jobs way more difficult. We just have to know that's what we're working with. If we know that, then we can figure out workarounds that make
Mhm.
sense,
Mhm.
that set them up for success
Right.
and makes the load a little bit lighter because we then are working with
Mhm.
those traits rather than banging our heads against them.
That's so important for people to hear.
Yeah.
This is crucial, crucial. I wish I had this information when I had my kid. Yeah.
Me too.
That isn't that funny? We do what we
Yeah.
needed. It's just so important. And I'm really grateful that you're doing this work and helping parents feel better about their journey.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to do it. And I also, like I said, I wish I didn't come, I don't come to this because I nailed it. I was really struggling. And so I'm happy to like help people not go through what I did.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
To learn more about McCall and her work, go to littlelivewires.com. You can also find her on Instagram and TikTok at Little Live Wires or on YouTube at McCall Gordon. I really hope that hearing this information from her has helped you understand why some babies might have difficulty with sleep. And if you know somebody who has a baby who sounds like what McCall was describing, send this podcast episode on to them. Parents need to know and understand that this type of temperament might be what's impacting their child's sleep. When we have answers and information and resources, it's just so much easier to cope and such a relief. And while you're sharing, please do leave a star review or a written review so people can know what you think about this episode and this podcast and how it helped you. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time.